What's up, party people, comics people? What's going on? Today, I want to show how I make a comic book cover. This is the first time I've ever done it this way. But there's a thing that I've discovered recently that I feel like is kind of underutilized in the comic book world, and I guess in maybe fine art in general. I don't know. What I'm talking about is this thing called a jelly plate. And it's not a thing I was aware of until very recently, but it's basically this piece of wobbly something. I don't really know what it's made of. I'm sure it's some sort of plastic of some kind. But it has these cover guards off it. You take one of them off, and what you can do is make essentially mono prints. So you can layer things onto the plate. Take this off here. This is the plate, jelly plate. It has some shit stuck to it from before. They're temperamental, but I think really fun. And basically you can layer things onto the plate, and then you can place a piece of paper on top of all the things you've layered onto it, and then you can peel the whole thing off, and it gives you a print, monoprint. A monoprint just means it's an edition, one of one. So you only get one print. There are some kind of hacks to it where you can do certain things to get like repeatable effects, but for the most part, you're making a single image. So I'm going to do an example in a little bit, maybe a couple examples, but I wanted to show you just some of the things I've made with it so far. Some of them are pretty lame. I think some of them are way cooler. But I've spent a ludicrous amount of time playing around with this thing in the last probably month and a half or so. Whenever I have like 10 minutes on a lunch break at school, I'll break one of these out and do some layers, and it's really frustrating at first, but it's also kind of immensely satisfying. And even when you mess it up, you can always start completely clear, and you can always clear the thing off and start totally fresh. So you roll paint on it, and then you press something into it, and there's a lot of different things you can do from there. You can immediately put a piece of paper on it and try to lift it up. This is actually, I think, 3 or 4 layers. There's black, there's yellow, some kind of yellow ochre, there's a green in there too. The white is the paper showing through. And then you can either work with it wet and keep lifting those layers up over and over again, or you can allow all those layers to dry, add a wet layer on top, put the paper on it, let that dry, and when that's fully, totally dry, you can lift this up and it will lift the entire image off of the plate. Now, a lot of this stuff I learned from YouTube. I think I found this on YouTube, or I just came across this on YouTube when I was looking for printmaking projects for my students. And shouts out to the middle-aged British lady coalition out there who seems to be the primary users of this technology. But I also want to shout out a dude who I think is taking these things a step further and really experimenting in ways that kind of are more fitting to my aesthetic, at least. But this is also just, I think, like a cool artist who's doing interesting things, which is Yates Makes. So we'll link to Yates in the comments, and shout out to Yates. Every time I watch one of his videos, I feel reinvigorated to try this thing out again, especially if I'm feeling stuck or I'm feeling frustrated or I can't get any of these to look the way I want to. He's always got a new angle. He's always trying some new approach or some new technique, and YouTube is great. It's owned by a terrible corporation, just like all these things are. But the communities that exist for hobbyist artists and all kinds of artists. I don't want to say hobbyists, but for any type of artist, just to learn quick new things is really inspiring and really exciting. So shout out to Yates Makes. What's up? We've never met, but I think you're great. So these are some nature prints. These are just things I found outside, pressed into the paint. Those ones I think are pretty lame. But I got the idea after I started to get some really cool textures off of these things that I really wanted this to be like it just really speaks to me in a lot of ways. I have a copy machine, and I love my copy machine. Like, what's up, Toto? Toto's my copy machine. It's a Toshiba, and I print almost everything that I make. I print on my copy machine, and I love that copy machine. But it's like almost too good. It's, I think, maybe 15 years old, and it doesn't have as much of the like kind of artifacting and broken, sort of dirty, like punk rock poster effect that I was sort of hoping for. That's not really a complaint, it's just kind of more of an observation. But there's something about the jelly plate textures that you get, because it's never quite perfect. Like, you're always leaving some bits and pieces on the plate when you pull something up like this. I don't remember how many layers this is, but it's a bunch. And that's just texture to me. I was instantly in love with this. Like, the second I pulled one of these off the plate for the first time, I was like, this is the look I'm going for. And I've never been able to recreate it effectively digitally. Nick and I have talked at length about how miserable we think it is to work digitally. And there's something really magical about working with paint, rollers, and this plate. And you just, I don't know, things just happen. Like, it's a really exploratory process. And if you're willing to kind of go through a little bit of frustration, I think it's totally worth it. So this was an early one. I'm working on the second part of my comic, ATP. I'll show a little bit of that later. The first one came out about a year and a half ago, and then I immediately started working on the second one, and I took a long break for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months in the middle, just because I didn't want to push it, and I needed to just think through some of the plot points and stuff. Anyway, take breaks, by the way. I highly recommend, if you're making your own comics, take lots of breaks. No one's kicking down your door. So take all the time you need. Anyway, once I started using this jelly plate, I was like, oh man, this is great. This is an aesthetic I really like. And I was never totally happy with the cover that I made for the first one. So I have an example here. This is one I made. I wrote proof copy on it because this is what I look at for like continuity for part 2. I like this cover, but I'm not sure it really says a whole lot. Like a lot of the things I make, I think it's like sort of overwhelming, and especially at comic shows, I think people look at this thing and they're just like, what the fuck is that? Which can be a good thing, but I don't know. I'm not sure it really fits the vibe of the book. The book is kind of like an action comedy. I really like this character here. It's like a silly pose on a menacing creature. That kind of hits the tone a little bit more. So I was really looking for something that was, I don't know, hitting that balance of like gritty but also kind of silly at the same time, and I'm not sure this really totally works. I do still like this cover, so if you're a fan of this cover, I'm a fan of you. But anyway, there's something about this where I could like tuck in these kind of silly illustrations and then work with the grittier style of the plate. This was a mistake, a failed attempt to have like a piece of collage in there. Still makes something cool. I could maybe layer something on there a little bit later or something, but I basically I wanted to redo the ATP 1 cover so that I can do 1, 2, and 3 will all have covers that are similar aesthetically. So this was an early example. It's just heavy body acrylic paint, a little bit of paint marker, and this was a transferred charcoal drawing. But I just love, like, I don't know, if you're a digital artist and you can do stuff like that, cool, I guess, but I've never been able to get anything like this, whether I'm painting or doing something intentionally. It never works the same way it does when it comes off the plate. And I don't like this as an image, but as an experiment, there's so much great stuff going on in here, and I'll probably chop this up and use it for collage or something like that. But just, this dirty, grimy artifacts, I guess, is the only thing I can think of to call it. I put the stencil on there and it just works, and I love it. So that was an early example. This was an old figure drawing I had in a book of figure drawings. I retraced it with a charcoal pencil, transferred that onto the plate. That didn't really work, and then I tried to add some kind of highlights for that. So this went onto the plate, and then I pulled it off. It left the drawing onto the plate. Then I added the paint onto the plate, put the paper on, let it dry, and then pulled it back up again. These are printouts from, these are like mistake prints from the earlier comics. Anyway, sort of a neat effect. Don't really like, this red on this green is really hideous, but still so much great stuff down here. I could just even in the worst print or the least successful thing, I mean, I could just stare at this stuff for hours. I just think those textures and things are so cool. So that one didn't quite work, but you know what are you gonna do? This one I cut my own letters as kind of like a stencil, and again I'm going to show you kind of how this works in a little bit. This one was much closer. I think this was looking a little bit better in terms of the direction I wanted to go in for the cover. I think the drawing's maybe a little too silly. I did this drawing very quickly, and it doesn't quite hit. I felt like it needed maybe like another element. You know, we have the text or the picture, we have this little part one here. Didn't quite all gel together, but I do think that looks cool. I don't know. This one I didn't like at all, but this was a test for a different kind of charcoal pencil. Just a little weak, I think, maybe. I don't know. Like for an action comic, this looks a little like navel gazy or self-aware. Not self-aware, self-conscious or something. It didn't suit the tone. But I do like the textures on here. Again, the rolly textures, all this stuff looks awesome. And I did like that one. I might revisit that at some point. And so I try to keep all these scraps, because even in the things that don't really amount to anything, you just get like, I don't know, stuff I could use later. I could scan it in and layer it in. I did try to do a little bit of digital layering of this stuff, and again, I just hated it. I just hate working on the computer. I don't see the computer as a creative tool at all. It's just a means to finishing something and getting it to the printer. What else we got in here? You do end up having to burn through a lot of paper. It's good if you have kind of scraps lying around. Like a lot of these are tests from the Xerox machine or things that didn't work out. I mean, that looks cool just on its own. You do have to kind of roll off the roller a lot, and you end up getting these extra scraps. Boy, I liked this one. This was a pretty decent experiment. One of the frustrating things about the plate is that these were transferred from printouts. If you do a YouTube search for like image transfer jelly plate, I think most of the people using the jelly plate are using it for image transfers from magazines and stuff like that. And this one was fun. I might be able to use this inside of when I print the collection, I might be able to use some of this stuff as little bits and pieces to highlight certain things here and there. So I got to this one, and this one I was like, all right, now we're getting somewhere. And I think what it was missing in the other ones was the collage element. So I like the letters here. I agree with Nick, who told me that this needs to have the little space in the P, so thanks, Nick. But this, I was like, okay, we have the picture, we've got the collage, we've got the text, we got the number, we got the color stuff, the textures. Like, this is starting to work and become something. It wasn't quite there yet, but I felt like the pieces were working together. So this I got to like a nice bit of confidence boost. And what I realized was that you just have to let it sit on the plate longer to dry in order for the collage to be picked up by the paper. I was pulling the other ones off too soon, and it was just sticking on there. But I was very excited about this one, and so I kept going a little further, and I ended up with this. So this is the new cover for ATP2, which I think, to me, has all the pieces working. This is a blown up traced charcoal transfer from one panel of the book. There's a little graph here that I found on archive from an old weightlifting book. There's just a doodled scrap of paper I found somewhere. If you look closely, there's also a guy lifting weights here. I traced this also from, I don't think from this book, from a similar book I found on archive. Archive is the shit, by the way. If you're not looking for books on archive to find old stuff you can use for collage, then you are missing out. Part one, my collage from National Geographic. I thought those letters turned out great. And then some junk mail. I just cut out my name and pasted it right on there. So this, I was really happy with. By the time I pulled this off, I was like, all right, that was all worth it. All that shit was worth it. So ATP1 now has a new cover. Looks like this when it's all printed out. I did tinker with the color settings a little bit because I thought that red was a little too deep. And it was like almost tough to read. So I brightened it up and played with the color balance a little bit. The printer didn't quite pick up the gold that's in here, which is, I think, a nice touch. But the yellow, red, and black, to me, I think that looks fucking awesome. I'm super excited about how that turned out. I kept the back the same, just added a little new cover, March 2025. So if you've got that old cover, Put that shit on eBay. Inside is the same, but ATP2 will match this aesthetic, and it is mere days away from completion. Unfortunately, it won't be ready for Mocha this weekend. I thought about rushing it and trying to really push, but I want it to be as good as it can be. So a couple more weeks on that as of this recording. So anyway, let's show you how this works. If you're unfamiliar, this is called a jelly plate or a gel plate. You can get them at Blick. You can get them all over the place. This is going to be a little shiny, so I'll try to get this off here. And there are 100 million YouTube videos about using this thing, but I haven't seen many people using them for something interesting. So I hope this is interesting to you. And if you want to use it for something that's not interesting, go for it. Who gives a shit? Give it a whirl. They're not particularly expensive. I think these were like 20 bucks, maybe. As far as I can tell, they last a really long time. There are also some YouTube videos about making your own. I have no experience with those, but you can apparently do this on your own. These do have, I think, some remnants of charcoal prints on here, so we'll see if those stay on there or not. All right, so this is tracing paper. I found that tracing paper works a little better than regular paper for image transfers. Also, my experience is the softer the charcoal, the better the transfer. So I'm gonna go with this 6B. If you're unfamiliar, they go from, pencils range from H to B, and there's a bunch of other ones out there too. But basically, if it's a higher number B, it's softer. If it's a higher number H, it's harder. So I'm gonna go with this extra soft charcoal here. All right, let's start with that. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab this here. I'm gonna use this plate. Now, the cool thing about the gel plate is that once you put this down and it transfers on there, you can instantly start painting basically under it because you're gonna be transferring the drawing to the plate, and it's gonna be on the front of the print that you ultimately make. So I'm gonna go ahead and place this right here. It's a little too big, but that actually works pretty well. Smooth it out. And what you want is at least one of these guys. This is just a regular brayer, printmaking brayer. And just get that smoothing out. And because this is the soft charcoal, it should just transfer right onto the gel plate nicely. This one you don't have to let dry or anything. It's just should just suck it up pretty accurately. And then you can lift, yeah, beautiful. As you lift it up, the drawing goes right onto the plate. Now you can see the spots that I smudged didn't transfer as well. And actually it looks like the vine charcoal really pulled up there. Okay, so now we have a reverse image of the Blef drawing. So what you want to do now is think of this as the front. So if you're thinking about it like in Photoshop terms or Affinity terms, fuck Adobe, you can think of this as like the top layer, and then you're gonna be working down in the other layers from there. So I'm gonna go with the classics. Now you want to make sure your paint is heavy body paint. So it should say it somewhere. Yeah, so here you might need to look. If it's not on the front, you might need to look somewhere so it says heavy body acrylic. If it's too thin, it won't really pick up. It'll just sort of wash all over the plate. Now this one has a little piece of collage on it. So what you can do if you get shit stuck to it, you can just do another print on top, let it dry, and then if you've done it right, it should lift off the entire thing. So this was put on with a little bit of gel medium. Where did I put it? So this is also something I learned from Yates Makes, is you can use gel medium for this too. If you don't know, gel medium is basically just acrylic paint without any pigment added to it. It's just the binder. And you can use this for a clear application onto the plate. All right, so this has been sitting for like 20 minutes or so. Actually, a little longer. However long it took to do the last one. So if you let it dry long enough, you should be able to just go ahead and peel this paper off and bring all that stuff we layered on it with it. So let's see. Let's give this a nice, gentle... Here, let's see. Blef. There we go. There's Blef. Shiny on this light here, but I mean, I think it looks pretty cool. I'm not sure what I'd use this for, but that's pretty much how it works. So jelly prints. It's kind of analog, working in layers the way you would in Photoshop or Procreate or anything like that. If I did this again, I'd probably use a lighter color behind that, but I don't know. This gets the job done. And again, you pick up all these little extra bits and pieces. Some of it got stuck to the plate a little bit, so you still get some nice edges going around there. Just great textures. I love the way these colors kind of blend together. Fantastic. All right, I'm gonna give the other one a few minutes and then we'll pull that one up. All right, let's see if we can lift this one up here. So this one's the collage one. I've had less success with the collage. Let's see. That looks good. There you go. Nice. That looks pretty good. So this was the piece up here that was stuck to the paper, to the plate earlier. We added this little layer of collage. The Posca pen that we smudged a little bit, but I mean, it looks pretty cool. It's got kind of roll back the other way. So anyway, I wanted to do this just because I thought like this is kind of an untapped medium for cool things as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there are tons of YouTube videos out there about this thing. Check them out. See if you're interested. Grab one of these if you want to work on it. I haven't seen anybody use it for comics yet. And yeah, give it a shot. It's always fun to try new things. ATP1 with a new cover is ready to rock. Get it on my shop if you're interested. ATP2 I'll probably talk about more on a future episode. Maybe I'll do a little deep dive on this book at some point. But it's coming. It's coming along. All right, thanks for watching. Go make something cool. Toodles.